of our lives. Time is a river in an ocean of space. Time is yesterday. Time is tomorrow. Time is now.
Time, in truth, is all of these things. An irreversible river, the events of yesterday, the plans for tomorrow, and the elusive fleeting instant we call now. Throughout recorded history, many men have described time. Few have understood it. Plato said, "Time is the image of eternity." Immanuel Kant conceived of time as having no real existence outside the human mind. Shakespeare wrote, "Time hath a wallet at his back, wherein he puts alms for oblivion." Albert Einstein, in his theory of relativity, established the space-time continuum and time as the fourth dimension. And Arnold Bennett defined time as the inexplicable raw material of everything. With it, all is possible. Without it, nothing. Time, then, regardless of definitions, poetic or abstruse, is indeed relative to all ages and all things. Hours pass like moments when you board a jet plane on a vacation flight. Yet a moment can be an eternity to a child who is lost and alone. Time drags. It seems to creep and crawl for the keeper of a lighthouse beacon. His hours are measured slowly in the rhythmic pulse of pounding waves, while another kind of pulse, that of a human heart, seems to mark the passing minutes with the speed of lightning, as an anxious surgeon fights for his patient's life. Apparently, if time moves slowly in the frame of one person's reference and rapidly for someone else, each person must be using a different method of measurement. Actually, they're not. We all measure time in the same way. The difference lies in our individual concept. The various devices for measuring time are all man-made. They were developed originally through observation of nature, movement of the earth, stars, phases of the moon and seasonal cycles. It was from these sources that the calendar evolved, and from the calendar came the subdividers of time measurement, the sundial, the hourglass, and finally the mechanical clock. But a calendar and a clock only measure the passage of time. They can't mark the difference that gives one man time to spare while another man never has time enough. The truth, as I said before, is in the concept of time, not its measurement. Fundamentally, this concept or idea is the realization that the only true time is now. Tomorrow or the future can never come because tomorrow will be now when we reach it. There is no tangible past or yesterday, only memory. Memory is invaluable, of course, because it is through this retentive faculty of acquired knowledge and experience that we develop judgment and skill. But yesterday is a separate entity. It has no direct relation to now, and now is the only time that matters. A close friend of Voltaire was one of those at the bedside during the great French philosopher's last illness. He asked the dying man this question: "If God sees fit to grant you additional time, another 24 hours, how will you live them?" Without hesitation, Voltaire replied, "One at a time." He knew that the only way any life can be lived is now, in the reality of the present. These are a few of the basic principles of time and its relation to you. A true understanding of time is your strength, your power, the very essence of your good health, success, and prosperity. No matter how young or old you are at this particular moment, time is on your side. Your greatest asset in achieving whatever you desire in life lies in learning how to organize your time.
Time capital.
There's another way to measure time that's just as accurate as a clock or a calendar. Benjamin Franklin, one of America's greatest practical philosophers, described it in 3 simple words. Time is money. Time capital is your most valuable asset. For no other man, no matter who he is, and regardless of his age, has more time at his disposal. That is, more time capital than you do. As Franklin pointed out, you can't borrow time. You can't hoard it. You can't even work exceptionally hard and earn more time. All you can do is spend it. How you spend your time, how you organize it, is the difference between success and failure. I used to think Franklin's axiom, time is money, was such an obvious truth that anyone could understand it. Then I realized that while several of my friends who were professional salesmen talked about time being money, they never applied the principle to their own lives. This was especially true of a young salesman I'll call Joe Anderson. We had discussed the value of time organization on several occasions. In theory, Joe agreed with everything I said. Putting the theory into practice was another matter. I decided that a more dramatic approach might give the idea some added punch. So in order to stage it properly, I enlisted the aid of another friend, the man who owned a little coffee shop where I knew Joe Anderson stopped every morning on his way to work. Then, about 9:15 on the following day, I walked into the coffee shop, and just as I expected, Joe was already there.
Paul Meyer.
Oh, good morning, Joe.
Come on over, pull up a chair. I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
Thanks.
Sit down, Paul. I've just finished the morning paper, and I'm ready for my second cup of coffee.
Is that so? I've been hoping I'd run into you.
Yeah. Hey, Max, got another coffee customer. Okay, coming right up. You know, this guy Max is a great guy. He owns this place, and he makes a good cup of coffee.
Yes, I know.
Here you are, gentlemen.
I didn't expect to find a salesman drinking coffee this late in the morning. How long you been here, Joe?
Oh, I don't know. I guess 30, 45 minutes, maybe. Why do you ask?
You must be making a lot of sales, piling up a good income.
Oh, I'm doing all right. I could do better, but... Oh, I get it, Paul. You've got the needle out, and back on that old time is money kick, right?
Not back on it, Joe. Still on it.
Okay. So time is money. You know, it's a good expression, but it doesn't really mean anything. Time's a lot of other things, too. You know, time is happiness, and, well, time's a big pain when you're waiting for somebody.
That's right.
And time is timing when you're in trouble with your golf swing like I used to be. But you know, Paul, I've got that licked now. Now, let me tell you about it. You see, I used to have this grip that was...
For the next 30 minutes, I listened to Joe Anderson's description of how he finally overcame a tendency to slice every time he drove a golf ball. If you like golf, which I do, it was an interesting story, but not a very profitable one. Finally, Joe glanced at his watch.
Hey, look at the time. I got to get out of here. I got some calls to make. Give me your check there, would you, Paul?
Thanks.
Here you are, Max. I got the right change. 40 cents, 3 cups for me, and 1 for Paul.
I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson. That isn't enough money.
What do you mean? Coffee's 10 cents a cup, isn't it?
Well, that's the price for Mr. Meyer's coffee, but yours, let me see, I'll have to figure it up. You came in about an hour and a half ago, 3 cups at $5 a cup.
What? $5 a cup? What, are you kidding?
And you read the paper for half an hour. That's $10. So the total bill is $25.
$25 for coffee and... Oh, this is ridiculous. I won't pay it.
Why not, Joe? You've been spending $5 a cup for a long time. You've never objected before.
I have not. Oh, this is some sort of gag, isn't it?
Not a gag, but it is my idea, Joe. Max has just been helping me out.
What do you mean?
Well, how much do you think your time is worth?
Time? Well, I don't know.
Well, I have a pretty good idea because I happen to know you're a good salesman when you're selling.
Well, what's that got to do with the price of coffee?
I'd say your time is worth anywhere from $5 to $20 an hour. Let's take the highest figure. That's $5 for every 15 minutes. You came in here this morning, read the paper for 30 minutes, that's $10 in time. Then you had the first cup of coffee, 15 minutes, $5. Then you met me and had 2 more, that's $10. Grand total, $25 worth of Joe Anderson's valuable time.
Oh, I see. The time is money bit, huh?
Well, isn't it? Supposing you had used those same $5 quarter hours in making appointments, or planning a schedule, or in actual selling. You'd have to be a multi-millionaire to waste time money like you do.
Which I'm not. You know, Paul, I think I finally get it. Time is money when you figure it this way.
Well, is there any other way?
And you know something else, Paul?
What's that?
With coffee and loafing at these prices, I can't afford it.
Joe Anderson isn't alone in that conclusion. Neither he, you, I, nor anyone else can afford the luxury of wasted time. Time is money, and money makes money when you use it productively. Think it over.
Don't agonize, organize.
The most common excuse or alibi for lack of achievement is, there isn't enough time. The executive says there isn't enough time to launch any creative planning programs because he's too busy with correspondence and conference schedules. The salesman complains there isn't enough time to prospect for new business because routine calls and sales reports demand all of his time. They both agonize about time when it's just as easy and far more productive to organize it. The basis of all time organization is a plan, a personal plan that only you can devise and execute. Every minute you spend in planning will save twice that time in execution. First, define your goal. Visualize exactly the position or level you want to reach. Then write it down on a piece of paper. And be specific. Don't generalize. Don't use vague terms like, I want to be successful, or I want to make more money. Spell out precisely what you want to do and the amount of time capital you'll have to spend to attain it. For example, suppose you're now making about $200 a week and you want to earn $300 a week. Break the extra 100 down into progressive short-term steps. Then allot each step an estimated amount of time for attainment. With concentrated effort, a reasonable estimate would be that within 30 days you'll be earning $210 each week. 90 days, $225, and so forth, until you reach the 300 mark. Second, create a timetable for each step. You've already determined your principal goal, and you know how many steps will be necessary to reach it. Now apply the same kind of time budgeting to the achievement of each separate step. In other words, create a timetable or series of deadlines for yourself. Any construction project, no matter how big, is easier to build with smaller units than with one large piece of material. You will find this especially true about organizing your time. Allot certain segments of time on a regular schedule to acquiring the knowledge or learning the skills that will make your main goal possible. Allow a realistic time limit for each one of them, then live up to it. Third, you can only do one thing at a time. Don't try to be ambidextrous, either physically or mentally. If you try to accomplish one task while you're worrying about another, both jobs will suffer, and you'll be that much further behind schedule. Supplement your personal timetable with a daily calendar in your office or in your pocket. Plan every day's activities, both your business and personal life, in estimated hours and minutes. Write everything down, and then forget it until it arrives on your planned schedule. Fourth, how much is your time worth? Your present income divided by the time you spend on the job determines how much each hour and minute is worth. Ask yourself this question: is everything I do worth that rate of pay? Are you wasting valuable time and money by doing some job yourself that could be done just as well by someone else? Do you, through habit, in your business or home life, perform routine tasks every day that don't merit the time and expense? The inability to delegate work is oftentimes a big stumbling block in the way of progress. It amounts to this: are you spending dollar time on penny jobs? Fifth, what is really essential? Put first things first in every schedule and in every estimate of the time necessary to complete a job. Don't commit yourself to doing the same task in the same way, day after day, merely because that happens to be the way it has always been done. Is every part of every step really essential to completing the job? You can determine essentials with these two questions. Can this procedure be rearranged and still achieve the same result? Or Can the procedure be altered and improve the result? There'll never be an earlier and a better time than now to start organizing your time. Define your goal, create a timetable, do one thing at a time, don't spend dollar time on penny jobs. Concentrate on essentials.
The time partition.
The modern business executive, whether he's in marketing or management, is in a constant race with time. As his activities become more diverse and complicated, he pushes that much harder against the time partition. He must necessarily break through this restraining wall in order to meet the increasing demands of his job. Two principal methods of beating time are already practiced by progressive executives. Undoubtedly, you use them yourself. The first of these is selectivity. You recognize those particular parts of your work that are obsolete, the methods and procedures that are passé or dated. Naturally, you discard them. You don't make the mistake of turning them over to subordinates. The second method is delegation. You delegate the portions of your job that you've already mastered. You divorce yourself from routine tasks. Thus, you gain time for self-improvement, and it gives the men with whom you work an opportunity to grow with you. Unfortunately, the continuing practice of these two methods is no longer sufficient. You've got to increase your work capacity. How do you increase it? By mastering time organization. And the basis of that technique is to develop your ability to absorb clear, accurate, and rapid impressions of what is going on around you. Most of us, once we've learned to do something, can turn the repetition of that action over to habit. We can eat, dress, or drive to the office with almost automatic movements. Our bodies will function with robot-like efficiency as long as nothing unexpected turns up. Our thoughts may even be somewhere else, preoccupied with speculation or daydreaming that has no connection with what we're doing. And although repeated habit patterns can be useful in any daily routine, they're also dangerous because they dull our receptivity and awareness. You want to breach the time partition and increase your work capacity. Then remember this. Every moment you waste in preoccupation is a moment you steal from work capacity. Have you ever noticed how preoccupation can completely dominate the people who are under its spell? They move and act like somnambulists, sleepwalkers, and while they talk with apparent coherence, their thoughts are a million miles away. It happens all the time. Suppose it were possible for you and I to listen to a typical preoccupied conversation, and suppose we could hear not only the speech but the thoughts of the speaker as well. If a conversation were between two young men working in a large office, it might sound like this.
Hiya, Charlie.
Oh, hello, Steve. What's new?
Oh, nothing. I just thought I'd drop in.
Figured he wouldn't be busy, and he's not.
Glad to see you.
Same old gag. He hates to waste time alone, so he comes in here.
Say, Charlie, did you see that inter-office memo this morning?
Sure. What about it?
Memo? Let me see. Oh, yeah, that reminds me. Wife said pick up something on the way home tonight. Coffee, that's it.
Yes, I was looking the other way. What did it say?
Boy, this Charlie's really absent-minded. He's worse than I am, except about the car, I guess. Got to remember to get those brakes fixed.
Why, it said coffee, that's it. 1 pound of drip ground coffee.
Charlie, what's the matter with you? What are you saying? I just asked you if
I know, and it's a good break for me you did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have...
Yeah, it's a funny thing you mentioned brakes. I sure need to get a lining job done on that old jalopy of mine. You see, I was...
Steve, wait a minute. Let's back off. What are we talking about?
I don't know. Memos, coffee, breaks. Hey. Coffee break, get it? What do you say?
Okay, might as well take a break. We're not thinking or talking any sense here.
Maybe that scene is slightly exaggerated, but it does point up the fact that many people do say one thing while they're thinking of something else. Don't let that kind of carelessness become a habit with you. Concentrate on being alert. Synchronize your thoughts, speech, and action. Develop constant awareness of your surroundings, the situation, and your listening ability. Unless he guards against it, The average man in the average situation is inclined to waste too much time in remembrance of things past or in speculation about things to come. You can't master your time until you master yourself.
Imperative and important.
The most efficient way to organize time is by the minute. Consciousness of minutes enables you to make frequent checks on yourself and your surroundings. Thus, you can recognize many of the incipient negative factors before they develop or do any real damage. Under constant surveillance, your energy is high and your decision-making ability is at its best. On the other hand, if you check yourself only at occasional hourly intervals, you may be unaware of negative qualities, and as a consequence, devote more time to non-essential thoughts and actions. You can organize your time by increasing your minutes of alertness, by thinking, speaking, and writing of the ever-present now instead of the past or the future. One particular skill which will save you a tremendous amount of time is knowing when to stop. Plan carefully the time necessary to complete a certain task or course of action, and when the time has elapsed, stop. When you continue to work beyond a predetermined time limit, you're stealing valuable time capital from your next project, and if that task suffers because of insufficient time, you'll soon be hopelessly in debt to countless hours of time that will never come. There's another side to the rule of knowing when to stop. It's knowing what to do next. This is the big loophole when time slips away for the majority of people. Careful planning of not only months, weeks, and days, but hours and minutes as well is the only way to avoid it. If you find yourself continually short of time, you're probably allowing wasteful habit patterns to control you instead of deciding your own course of action. Many times your attention is centered on non-essentials that are neither interesting nor satisfying. This robs you of productive energy. Actually, you can control your habits in any way you choose. Here's an excellent way to establish control: a definitive course of action. First, lay 2 pieces of plain paper on the top of your desk. Second, write the word imperative on one of the sheets and the word important on the other. Imperative, as you know, means peremptory or expressing positive command. Important means significant or of special consequence. Third, on the sheet headed imperative, put down only those things which you must do today. Fourth, on the sheet headed important, list the things that should be done because they're important. Fifth, take this list and file it away for future reference. Sixth, take the imperative list and begin to do everything you have written down, and do them now, today, without exception. If you follow this plan consistently with 2 new lists for every new day, you will soon find yourself in complete control of every personal thought and action. Naturally, as time goes on, some of the things on past important lists will be transferred to the imperative, but you will evaluate them, not chance or pressures of unorganized time. And don't forget the value of the rules, knowing when to stop, and knowing what to do next. Ralph Waldo Emerson never wrote any truer words than these: "Finish each day and be done with it. Tomorrow is a new day."
Thieves of time.
At the height of a hard-fought battle during Napoleon's campaign in Italy, a French general reported to the emperor and pleaded for more help. Napoleon listened impatiently to a few words and then said, "I'll give you anything you ask except more time." Napoleon knew, just as countless other military commanders throughout history have known, that battles are invariably won by the army that fights with time, not against it. So it is with us. In our personal battles to achieve personal goals, no man can give himself additional time, weeks, days, or hours, no matter what the emergency may be, but he can put his time to the best possible use. We all agree that time is a priceless possession, yet most of us ignore the thieves who steal it from us every day. The first of these is an insidious character called procrastination. We make elaborate preparations to accomplish something, then listen while procrastination advises us to wait. We keep postponing the actual start of our project, first days, then weeks and months, until it's finally lost in some indefinite tomorrow, and tomorrow will never come. The antidote for procrastination is contained in two simple words: definite and decision. After you determine what course of action you're going to take, ask yourself one more question: when? Then apply the antidote. Decide on a definite date. You'll be amazed at how easy it is. Another time thief is pseudo-rationalization. By that I mean the process of reasoning by which many of us find excuses for not doing something. We seem to take a certain measure of satisfaction in explaining to ourselves, and anyone else who will listen, exactly why something we plan on doing is visionary, imprudent, or impractical. Actually, all we do in these pseudo-rationalizations is advertise the fact that we can't organize our time. If we substituted decisive action for explanation, we'd never feel the need to rationalize. The cruelest and most heartless time thief of all is regretting. Nothing wastes time as viciously as those intervals devoted to useless regret. You can't live in the past. Once you've experienced a situation or a combination of circumstances, it's beyond recall. Of course, we learn from past mistakes, but we can't go back and correct them. Suppose we could go back, do something in a different way, or make a different decision. Do we really know we'd be better off today as a result? Isn't it logical to assume that much of our present progress is due to the lessons we've learned through experience? Why should we waste time regretting the knowledge we've gained through mistakes? Time thieves have a way of disguising themselves. Procrastination, excuses, and regretting can appear to be reason, logic, and common sense. Learn to recognize these time stealers for what they are: enemies who try to destroy your most valuable asset, time. But you can turn the tables on them with decision, action, and time organization.
Eliminate the negative.
A prominent American psychologist has written the following axiom: work expands in direct relation to the time available for its completion. We're all familiar with the innate truth of this statement. Do you ever eat a leisurely breakfast, read everything in the morning paper, or have an extra cup of coffee? Of course you do. But you also know that when it's absolutely necessary, you can consume the first meal of the day in a fraction of the leisurely time. Conversely, if you get up earlier than usual, it takes longer to eat breakfast. If you allow yourself several hours to write 5 important letters, it will take that amount of time to write them. Allot only 1 hour for the job, and you'll finish it within the specified time. Judging from these examples, we know that wasting time is often unconscious, but the only way you can correct it is consciously. Here are some suggestions that will help. Make notes. Use a pencil and paper instead of your memory. Many seemingly big problems become progressively smaller when you break them down on a piece of paper. Leave a pad of notepaper at every strategic location in your home and work area. Put a pencil and paper beside your bed or on the breakfast table and on the sun visor of your car. Be prepared to write it down any time, day or night. Remove distractions from your work area. Keep your desk or work table as clean as possible. Eliminate such temptations to idleness as newspapers, personal letters, and souvenirs. And once a job is completed, get it out of sight and out of the way. Discourage interruptions. One of the major frustrations of any business day is an interruption of your work by some well-meaning fellow worker, relative, or friend. Try to make yourself less accessible. Set up certain times in every workday when you can't be reached. Eliminate idle conversation when you're transacting business. Storytellers can wreck every deadline you set. And beware of the telephone. It can be either a time saver or a time waster. Only you can control it. Learn to say no. It's one of the most valuable and effective words in the English language. Don't let yourself be talked into commitments on things or projects in which you have no real interest. Be selective. Remember, it's your time you're spending. Learn to listen carefully, and you won't have to waste time checking back to verify your understanding. Get all of the facts: who, what, when, where, and why. the first time you're exposed to them. Don't dash off to a dental appointment on Tuesday when it isn't scheduled until later in the week, just because you didn't listen carefully when the date was first arranged. Let the postman be your errand boy if running around eats into your valuable time. For just a few cents, you can hire a United States postman, the most reliable messenger service in the world. Let him deliver magazines and books, make bank deposits, and carry the checks for payment of household bills. Try these suggestions or similar time savers, and it will soon become apparent that you're beginning to master time instead of allowing time to master you.
Time deposits.
On the reverse side of this recording, I said, you can't hoard time. Unquestionably, that is true. You can't hoard time, but you can set up a time deposit account for your personal and private use. We all establish an individual account during the early years of our lives when we attend school and acquire knowledge. Later, we add to the original deposit through the accumulation of adult wisdom and experience. Our time deposits grow as we grow. That is, they can increase if we develop the saving habit and make deposits on a regular schedule. Every bit of knowledge that brings greater understanding and every acquired skill that repeated use makes more efficient adds to the time in your deposit account. You can place it there at any age and at any time, and withdraw it whenever it will best serve your needs. There are any number of good ways to save portions, segments, bits, and pieces of time, and to add them to your time deposit. Here are some of the methods I've used. A personal idea file. Ideation is a definite form of time because it contributes to progress and increased earnings. In my desk at home, also at the office, I maintain a file box and a supply of 3x5 index cards. I use the cards as ready reference stimulators on which I can jot down any ideas I develop about anything. The ideas I file aren't restricted to my own imagination. The cards also serve as mountings for countless items I clip from newspapers and magazines. I never pass up any idea that can be applied to myself or my work. A notebook or journal. Maintaining a day-by-day record of your accumulated experience is one of the best ways in the world to make time deposits. In suggesting this, I don't mean recording your private thoughts or reactions in the form of a diary. Confine your journal entries to problems in human relations as you live them. If a problem develops, what caused it, and what solution was finally reached? A record of this kind will be invaluable when you encounter an analogous situation later on. On-the-spot dictation. Accurate records are a time-saving necessity in any business operation. In my own work, I make it a practice to use a recording machine immediately after every conference. I dictate a resume of the meeting's subject matter and what decisions were made. In this way, I not only retain an accurate record of details while they're still fresh in my mind, but I've also established a reference to prevent time-wasting conflicts and possible misunderstandings. Waiting time. If everyone, everywhere, used the same point of time reference, nobody would ever have to wait. Unfortunately, this isn't true. We all spend too much time in unavoidable waiting. Waiting for an appointment, a bus, a taxicab, a phone call, or just waiting for personal inspiration. We can't avoid these time wasters, but we can turn them into time deposits. The best way to accomplish it is to carry some form of time use with you wherever you go. Make your waiting time reading time. The current copy of a trade journal about your business, a general news digest, or a book that will contribute to your self-improvement. Actually, it can be any kind of reading material, as long as you turn waiting time into reading time and eliminate annoyance. Remember, you deposit time when you save time. And the more time you save, the greater your balance will be.
Time is energy.
In order to organize time efficiently, we must necessarily relate the time in our personal lives to its dimensions in energy. These facets of energy are many and varied. However, for the purpose of individual consideration, they can be classified generally in 4 divisions. And under these headings, more often than not, they are either used or misused. The first is physical energy. Baseball players, for example, use controlled physical energy through rigid training and scientific application of its use. We too possess physical energy which we expend in muscular work, walking or playing games. Whether we use it with sense or nonsense is up to us.
Hey, Bill, I've been looking for you. Need another man for a foursome. How about it?
No, not me. I just came in.
Say, you do look kind of rugged. What's the matter?
I don't know, unless maybe 36 holes of golf is too much for one afternoon.
The next dimension is mental energy. The widespread and increasing use of automated calculators, memory banks, digital computers, and electronic posting machines has presented many of us with a bonus in mental energy time. If we're wise, we delegate routine jobs to these electronic brains and give ourselves added time for truly creative thinking. The third consideration is nervous energy. We must use nervous energy carefully. It is the spark plug of our complex work capacity. Almost all of our accomplishments, every day and every hour, are triggered by nervous energy. Conversely, it is just as easy to dissipate this valuable force in useless, unplanned activity. The fourth and final dimension is spiritual energy. Spiritual serenity is a boundless well of power that is available to all of us. It enables us to do hard jobs easily and put extra effort into everything we undertake. Spiritual energy, when we have the good sense and wisdom to use it, is our source of self-confidence and inner strength. If these are the principal energy components in time organization, why don't all of us use them more efficiently? The answer to that compounds the limitations we place on every facet of energy. You're familiar with the most common ones. For example, frustration. Some frustrations, of course, are self-created, but the majority of them are caused by other people or situations over which we have no control.
Well, what's wrong with the car? Can you fix it?
I don't know. It could be the timer or maybe the carburetor. What do you want me to do?
What do I want? Listen, I'm no mechanic. Well, can't you tell me what's wrong? Oh.
The best way to meet frustration is to realize that it generally annoys you out of all proportion to its importance. Actually, all that frustration does is burn up energy. But the greatest debilitators of most everyone's energy are worry and fear. It's a very simple matter to advise someone else not to worry. It's infinitely more difficult to apply the same advice to yourself. The most insidious thing about worry is its ability to exaggerate itself. Like a mirage or a hallucination, worry can assume any size, form, or distorted proportion you allow it to take. Just as a frightened child sees awesome giants or hobgoblins in the shadows of a tree, so you can allow yourself to be tormented by warped and baseless worry. Recently, a group of people was interviewed about worry. Each member of the group was asked to write down their individual worries as they experienced them. After continuing this practice for a period of 2 months, they discovered that more than 90% of their worries never materialized. The same ratio holds true for all of us. Less than 10% of our worries ever develop into tangible facts. Fred Smith, a well-known management consultant and good friend of mine, acknowledges the existence of worry, but he refuses to be unduly concerned. Above his desk, there is a framed sign that says, "Wait to worry." This daily reminder helps him to shrink any possible worries to their proper proportion. In reality, there are only 2 kinds of worry. The first is worry about something that is inevitable. You cannot change it. No amount of worry will alter the result, so you're expending energy uselessly. The second is worry about the things you can change. Since you can alter these things, do so instead of worrying. In its final analysis, worry is just another form of fear. When I was a small boy, my father used to tell me, If you have a fear to do something, do the thing you fear, and you'll overcome your fear. I've found that advice just as sound in my adult life as it was in my youth. Use action to defeat worry and fear. Do something to change what can be changed, and you'll no longer be afraid.
Mastering time.
Don't waste time and envy when you meet a man who is more successful than you are. Instead, find out why he's a success. In the majority of cases, it will be self-evident in many different facets. Good health, attractive personality, wealth, social position, and the respect of everyone who knows him. However, if you delve deeper, you'll discover a single underlying factor that he shares with every other successful man. He has mastered time organization. In other words, he has organized himself through controlled attention and concentrated energy. We all know that actually, tomorrow never comes. We never do anything or have anything unless we do it and have it now. The passage of time can't possibly change failure into success, because failure is always failure regardless of the time. Never consider success as a future possibility. It exists now in you, and the quickest way to reach it is to organize your time. In the back of the booklet which accompanies this recording, you will find 5 ruled pages headed Daily Time Use Analysis. With their daily use, you can launch the first week of your own time organization plan. You'll notice that every page is divided into hourly segments, from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. It is also divided vertically into 2 columns. They are headed How I Spend My Time and Minutes Wasted and Why. The purpose of the time analysis chart is to aid you in determining exactly how much productive time you spend each day. In order to be effective, the chart must be filled in at the end of each hour. Answer the 2 questions honestly. If every minute was not spent constructively, write down the number of minutes wasted and why. At the end of the day, add up the wasted minutes. I think you'll find at least one consistency about wasted time. It's generally wasted in the same way every day. If this prediction is true in your particular case, there is certainly no reason for you to become discouraged about it. Use this self-evident knowledge to strengthen your resolve to waste less and less time in successive days. Time is not granted us to spend, but to invest. Because most of us are aware of our own faults and limitations, we tend to underrate ourselves and thereby place a lower value on our time. In truth, we can all live a successful and rewarding life if we will but make the best possible use of the time allotted to us. This is just as true of a young salesman as it is of a chief executive of a large corporation. They both develop their individual potentials by organizing their time. Your time is the dynamic and priceless power that only you can master, and you can master anything if you can master yourself. This is Paul Meyer, who knows that time is on your side the moment you organize it.